right. Hey, everyone. We are here with a special guest, Emily Stimpson Chapman. I am so glad that we get to chat with her because she shared her cookbook with us. And I'm so selfish about this because we got to experience the fruit of this work firsthand when we went out to visit the Chapmans back in March out in Steubenville, Ohio. They invited us to stay with them for the weekend. And so I can share with you these recipes are delicious. The pictures are from their home. My kids open the book and they're like, we ate on those plates. Like, yes, you did. So this is a totally authentic, real book about not just recipes. Ooh, my headphone fell out. Not just recipes, but also hospitality, which is something that we love in our home. So I'm glad that I got a copy of this for myself, and I'm glad that I get to talk to you about this today. But Emily, can you maybe share just who you are and where you're from and give more details than I did because mine was very vague?
Yes. Well, I'm a friend of Monica's, so that's the most important thing. I am a wife. I am a mom. I'm a writer. I've been writing for a long time now. So I've got like over a dozen books in my name and more in other people's names and bunches of studies. But in the midst of it all, we love to cook and we love to host. And it was super fun to have the Ortegas staying with us. My kids, God was so good. Like we adopted all of our children, and yet they all have this love for hospitality and hosting, and they love it when people come to stay with us, and especially when they have kids. They love it when people come over for dinner. So our kids all had a blast together, and yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
And now there's a
It was
cookbook.
yeah, now there's a cookbook. So it was very cute. I showed our kids the cookbook when it came in because they saw your name. I think it came from you. I think you shipped
Yes,
this
we had
book.
we
It
had
didn't
to
come from
mail
the
them.
publisher, right? Yeah.
Yes, the first time they
So
asked me to mail them, I was like I don't have other things to do, but okay.
yeah, right. But my kids saw your name on the box and they were like, "What did she send us?" And I shared it with them and they ended up being the promo reel because they were so excited that you did this. And they said the same thing. They were like, "Everyone in the Chapman family is so nice. The kids let us play with their toys. They showed us around town and your kids have absolutely inherited this charism for hospitality. Like it shows that like this doesn't have to be biological. It's like a family charism of hospitality
Yeah, it's
that you guys
fascinating,
have.
isn't it? Just
It's
you'd
so
think there's
cool.
I mean, there's only 3, so I guess you can have 3 without having a hardcore introvert in the bunch, but they all love people. And that's all they've ever known. They've just known this life where people are coming over and our good friends are like aunts and uncles to them, and we host good friends from out of town all the time. We adopted all 3 of our kids, and their lives all in a sense began with hospitality. Like when we were in NICUs across the country, far away from our friends and family, there was always a Catholic family in the town who would welcome us in and let us stay with them and help take care of us. And so I think maybe they have been given a special grace to love hospitality because so many graces were bestowed on us that way at the beginning of their lives.
That's amazing. So like the idea of I've received hospitality and so therefore like I learned from that and I want to like share that with others
Yeah.
that pay it forward. That's so cool. Can you maybe share with us your perception of the difference between hospitality and entertainment? Because I think sometimes we can hear this idea of hospitality and you're selling a book that's like here be hospitable and cook these meals but also like share that with others and some people can feel so overwhelmed and intimidated by that idea and I think that you do a great job of differentiating hospitality versus entertainment.
Well, entertainment is what people think they're supposed to do. They think they're supposed to have people over and have a themed dinner party and fancy dishes. And, everything is about impressing the guest, which really means it's about you, not the guest. Like you're trying to show the guest how impressive you are, how great of a hostess you are, how together you have your life. And that doesn't necessarily make people feel loved or welcome. Like where hospitality is about the person you're welcoming into your home. It's about making them feel loved, making them feel welcomed, giving them a place to belong. And I feel so strongly about this because like the reason that I wanted this book to come out, especially in hardback form, and we can talk a little bit about how it began, is because we have a crisis of friendship and we have a crisis of loneliness and we have a crisis of busyness. Like people are so busy. They don't have time to have people into their home. They don't have time to accept invitations of their home. And so what you get is this really thin transactional community where you see people at the soccer field and you chit chat and it's great, but then soccer season ends and you don't see them until the next soccer season. Or, you see people in the school car line. It's always very quick and chatty, and you don't have time to go deep. They don't necessarily see the most broken parts of you. They don't see your baseboards. They don't know what's happening there. And I've watched my parents decline over the past few years. My dad passed away 2 years ago. My mom has Alzheimer's. And through it all, they've had these best friends who are part of our life growing up, who were over at our house and who we were over at their house. And their best friends have walked with them and been with them in the waiting rooms and the ICUs. And my mom is in a memory care unit right now. And her best friends still show up to see her every week. And she doesn't remember that they're there. She recognizes them. She doesn't always recognize her daughters at this point, but she recognizes her friends who have been there with her for, 60 plus years. And I'm like, what is everyone going to do when they're 70 and 80 and all they have are these surface transactional friendships and kids who are far away and busy and no experience of thick community? And so I think it's very easy to choose busyness right now because that seems most urgent. But we have to consciously choose hospitality, to not put on a show, to prioritize time with people and make that much more focused on our lives. And if we don't do that, I think the crisis of loneliness is going to get so much worse. And our kids are, they're talking about how handing on the faith to kids, like you need thick community to help hand it on. So I wrote a cookbook to help people have recipes that they could have people over with and feed their family. But more importantly, just to help them see that hospitality does not have to be a complicated, difficult thing. It can be a beautiful thing in the midst of your messy life, but you do have to do it. Like you have to make it a priority. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. Well, I think anything worthwhile is like a choice, and it's not always the easy choice. Sometimes it feels like the harder choice in the moment, but then after you do that, after you invite people into your home, you're like, oh, that was so good. That was so worth the discomfort, or maybe a little bit of anxiety as you practice this and get used to it. Maybe the little bit of I remember one time I was wiping down the bathroom, a guest was coming over, and the soap dispenser was so gross looking. Like there was dirt all over the soap dispenser. And I was savagely trying to clean it. And then part of me was like, well, I guess it proves that my kids use soap because the soap dispenser is dirty. But I just remember being neurotic about it for a moment. And I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
No, it's so hard.
They're not looking at my soap dispenser.
I mean,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, there's oftentimes when we've invited people over for dinner, I'm like, well, what was I thinking? I've got so much to do. But when am I going to fold the laundry? When am I going to, I've been working all day. What am I thinking? I just want to rest. And then they come over and I'm like, oh, this was the best decision ever. It was great.
Yeah.
The things that we most need are often the things that are the most challenging for us to do, like exercise. We need exercise. It's so hard to exercise. We need to eat well. That can be really hard to do. We need to sleep, and we need community. We need hospitality, but we have to consciously work at it, just like we do at exercise.
Yeah. I think you and another woman that I follow on Instagram, Elizabeth Navarra. Am I saying her name right? Betty Jo So's.
Oh yeah, yes.
And
yes.
That you guys have a strategy of there's one room where you just tuck everything in and then shut the door.
That is my cleaning method. Shut that door. And then we just yell at kids when they start to go upstairs. No, you can't go upstairs. Stay on the first floor. Yes.
And then you also in your book you talked about really thinking of the people that you're inviting over. So one thing I loved is you have some recipes that are 30 minutes or less recipes, right? Or they're quicker, but you also are very conscientious of people's eating habits and dietary restrictions. Was that challenging for you? Or is that how were you able to really consider about the people who are going to eat these meals? How did that go?
Well, I have so many friends with dietary restriction. I have celiac family members. I have a peanut allergy. So I am old enough to remember when nobody had any issues. There was no allergies. There was no celiac. Everybody came over, you gave them pasta or soup, and it was great. But over the past 20 years, it's gotten to the point you feel like, I would joke, it's Iron Chef night. I've got these 4 allergies to accommodate. What am I going to do? And so I developed, for my own sanity, when, I learned to always ask before somebody's come over, do you have any food issues? And then to develop recipes that way I wasn't in a panic when someone said, Enzo put me in a little bit of a panic.
Yep.
Renzo is a special case. I was like, I don't know. I mean, if it was
Absolutely.
just one dinner, I could have done it. But I was like, oh, the weekend. What are we going to do? Um, but normally, most allergies you can handle because I've got like this repertoire of things. And I wanted to give people that. I wanted to give them a lot of recipes that are delicious. And like, okay, we've got a gluten allergy and a dairy allergy. Let's look for gluten free, dairy free. Okay, we make that because that's half the panic. You're like, I don't usually cook that way. I don't know how to accommodate. People have stopped inviting people over because of allergies because it
Yeah.
gets so difficult. And sometimes it's not allergies, sometimes it's special diets. You know, somebody's doing this or that for this reason or that reason. I'm trying not to throw any shade on any specific diets or reasons. But it can get very hard and frustrating where you're like, okay, well, this person is celiac and this person has a nut allergy, but this person just likes to eat a protein heavy diet. So how do I navigate all these different things? And yeah, the cookbook is hopefully helps with that.
Yeah, accommodating for that. You'll be happy to know, though, that all of the naturopath stuff that Renzo was going through back when we visited in March actually worked. So now he can eat almost everything. So
Really?
if we were ever to come and visit again, the list is very short now.
It was a long list. Monica was
Yeah,
like, oh,
it
because
was.
I asked him, I was like, what's the allergies? He's like, all right, let me work on this. I got to go get the list. And I was just thinking, oh dear,
It's like,
what's coming?
just give him meat and potatoes at that time. I was like, just meat and potatoes are fine. He won't even care if it's like over well done
Lorenzo.
or whatever.
But he's doing
Yeah,
better now?
he is. Well, we found out the main problem was he had a tree nut allergy. And
Uh-huh.
because he had always eaten stuff, it just wrecked his gut. And
Okay.
so once we like eliminated all the things that upset him for a little bit and his gut could take a break and rebuild, we avoid tree nuts and that's about it. He eats gluten now. He still takes a lactate pill for dairy, but like we could put dairy back in
Right.
it. He can eat pretty much everything except for tree nuts.
So much
So
easier. So
so
much
much
easier.
easier. Yep. And because of that, we discovered one of our kids is anaphylaxis tree nut allergy, which
And
is
were they
like
not eating tree nuts before
they
or?
were. And I almost think that they had somewhat desensitized, but the doctor was like, the lab levels are like, you're a ticking time bomb. At some point, he's going to
Uh-huh.
need an EpiPen. So now we have our EpiPen and now we don't eat tree nuts and we're good. But
Yeah, I have, well, I have an
mhm.
anaphylactic peanut allergy
Yeah,
where,
which is
yeah.
when you shared about your ER visit last week, I was like, oh no, I hope it wasn't allergy.
No, it's just stress. It's just stress,
Just stress.
Monica.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, we'll take that because there's something manageable about that. But it feels unmanageable, I suppose. I
If you
can
figure it
manage
out,
thinking
let
of
me
it.
know. Let me know.
Oh man. Well, I would love to know. You kind of alluded to it. This book is actually not has been like a very long work in progress, and if I'm correct, there's a bigger story behind it, like where it first started, and then now where it's kind of resurfaced again. Can you share why you wrote this, why you made this in the
Yeah.
first place?
So it started 5 years ago. Back in 2020, we were hoping to adopt another baby. We had no idea how we were going to afford another adoption. We'd adopted our first son. Sorry, the perpetual cold. And I came up with the idea that I would do a cookbook as a fundraiser. I'd had a food blog. I've been writing about food for years. I'd been sharing recipes for years. People wanted a cookbook. So, well, what if I wrote an e-cookbook and then just gave it to everybody who contributed $10 to the fundraiser? And it was really successful. And what people discovered is because they thought they were just being nice and giving $10 for the fundraiser and they would get a cookbook, whatever. But they really liked the cookbook. Like, oh, no, her recipes are really good. And this is great. And I love the essays. I would love to give this to somebody. I would love to have a hardback edition. And I talked to a publisher at that point about doing it. But we ended up adopting not just one baby, but two babies with the help of that cookbook. So I had 303, and life was, I don't remember most of life at that point, Monica. But I knew I couldn't do a cookbook. But last year, space opened up in my schedule and I was able to do it. But I didn't want to just do the same cookbook. So we added, like, there's 50% more recipes in it. There's more essays. There's almost all new pictures. So it was fun. And now it's fun to see it reaching a much wider audience beyond my sort of core people who are always there to support me with things.
Yeah, so good. I love that. And I love that your way of kind of giving back to people supporting you. It's like this cycle of like they're supporting you because one, you have supported them with your writing in the past. I'm sure they were following you in the first place because you've inspired them or shared something that they related to in your writing. And so they wanted to help you. And then you help them back and open up their home and be hospitable, maybe looking like adoption, maybe looking like lots of other things, but, bringing people around the table for a meal and welcoming people into your home and loving them and just giving them some tools to help them with that. You mentioned essays, so I thought this was just a cookbook. What? Tell me about essays. There's essays in here.
There's so many essays. There are essays about the spiritual meaning of hospitality. There are essays about the feminine genius in food and women's special relationship with food. Like women actually become food for our children when we're able to feed them with our body. And in that, the only man who does that is Jesus, who feeds us with his actual body. So there is this really intimate relationship between women and food and the Eucharist that I reflect on. Talk about practical stuff, like how do you feed your own kids? How do you feed other people's kids? So yeah, how clean your house should be. Like I talk about that. How do you prepare your house for guests? What do you worry about? What do you not worry about? I share some thoughts on food and the Eucharist and the sacramentality of food and what food teaches us, what it means to eat Eucharistically. So lots of thoughts on what we're doing when we're inviting people over for dinner or making a meal for our family. Like we're not just, throwing some soup down or opening up our house to impress people. Like it is such a gift of the Lord that he allows us to participate in his nature by communion. Like he is a communion and we image him, and we are imaging him most beautifully when we're giving and receiving ourselves to others. And one of the best ways we do that is hospitality. So get to talk about that, help people see that. It's lots of fun.
Yeah, so good. So this is absolutely more than just a cookbook around the Catholic table. I don't think I actually said that out loud. Sorry, I'm a bad interviewer. So around the Catholic table. So it's more than just what you're putting on the table, but it's a really big emphasis on what is happening around it and the relationships that are being built and the vulnerability, but the gift of sharing yourselves with the people that you've brought into your home, and then like receiving them and the gifts that they're bringing. You also said about women have a special relationship with food, which I completely agree with. But I in particular, as a teen and a young adult, I struggled, I think, with that relationship with food in a particular way. And I struggle with some disordered eating. And so there's been times when going to somebody else's house or bringing people into my home at different seasons of life have brought that anxiety and that disorder back to the surface sometimes, and just the stress of not wanting to be a bad guest and like eating everything that's been given to me, but also like worrying about the calorie intake or what does this mean or how much exercise I need to do afterwards. Can you maybe share a little bit about your journey with food to go from you also sharing the experience of disordered eating and now writing a cookbook of nutritious meals?
Yeah, no, I struggled with anorexia for 6 years between 19 and 25. And it was when I came back to the Catholic Church and started understanding that everything in the world is made by God and loved by God and is meant to teach us something about God. And that is true of, our bodies. It's true of the sun, the moon, stars, but it's true of food. Like food, God always knew from the beginning of time that he was going to give himself to us under the guise of bread and wine. Like he was going to feed us with himself. And food was always meant to help us understand that, to help us understand what the Eucharist is doing on a spiritual level. So the way food nourishes us and strengthens us and comforts us and consoles us and brings us together and requires sacrifice, like all of that points to the truth of the Eucharist, which strengthens us and nourishes us and comforts us and consoles us and is the representation of Christ's sacrifice on Calvary and brings us together into one body, the body of Christ. And so when I saw that I was walking back from communion early after I'd returned from the church, and I realized that the most intimate communion I had with God was that I ate him. Like the food that I was so afraid of was the form Jesus took on to feed me. And so I was like, oh my gosh, every time I am afraid of food, every time I fear food, every time I see it as a problem to be controlled, I'm not appreciating the gift God has given us in food, and I'm not understanding what it's meant to do in helping me understand the Eucharist. And so I was profoundly healed from the anorexia. And at that point, I was like, well, if God loves food this much, that this is what he takes on, then I have to love food and I need to feed other people. Like I need to make food. I need to make delicious food. I need to use food as God intended it to be used, to bring people together, to give them joy, to pour my love into them. I need to sacrifice for them in that. And that's what I've been doing now for a long time. And it doesn't mean I never have a qualm about food. Like, I've been perimenopause and my body has gained plenty of weight, over the past 10 years, and it will not leave no matter what I do. And so it's more of a struggle for me now than it was at any other point since my anorexia, but I always remember like, well, what matters more? Like loving the person in front of me, receiving the gift that they're giving me, opening my home and giving them something delicious, or a number on a scale. Like what matters more, charity or my own personal vanity? And I'm pretty harsh on myself. Like I'm a choleric, so I have to speak strongly to myself. And that usually helps. I'm like, all right, vain woman, what do you want to get to heaven? Sorry, Lord, about my vanity. And I wasn't charitable, but I really didn't want that extra cream sauce. So now I try to prioritize charity, but it's an ongoing struggle. I think everything in the faith is. There's very few things that you never go back. I think life is. It's like as we're getting holier and holier, we keep circling back around, and the impurities keep getting sifted out. And it's so often the same struggles we carry with us for the rest of our lives. Our besetting sins are usually our besetting sins in different degrees. Like sometimes they recede, sometimes they come in, sometimes they get better and better and better and better, or lesser and lesser and lesser. But I think I think it's one of the reasons why the church calls us to a life of faith and reason. Like that is so important that we understand what the church teaches, that we understand ourselves, that we understand what faith makes possible, because we can't be guided by our emotions. Like the head has to lead. It has to listen to the heart. It has to be informed by the heart. But if we let our emotions lead, they get out in front of the head too far, bad things happen. Bad things happen.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important. Like that brings it back to this life of living in community that helps us to also stay in check with that, right? Like when we're recognizing that our influence goes beyond ourselves, that I'm not living in my own like isolated bubble where it's only just my life that, my emotions are impacting or affecting, but that me is then a gift to other people, or maybe lack of gift, right? And it kind of keeps us in check of like, where are we leading? Are we leading with charity,
Right.
or are we leading with selfishness and pride or vanity, or like the things that we think are most important, or our feelings think are most important?
Yeah. And I mean, my mother had disordered eating. So she was always dieting. She was always counting calories. She was always calling herself fat. And I believe that affected the way I saw food and my body. And so now when I look at my daughter and I think about how I want her to see her body and how I want her to see food, I don't want to see not eat with her at the dinner table because I'm doing some sort of fast. I don't want her to see me controlling things or ruling things out or saying food is bad. I don't want to pass those attitudes on to her. Like we receive good attitudes about food and temperance and charity in community, and we receive bad attitudes about food. And I do not want to pass the bad attitudes about food that I acquired from my mother, from the culture, onto my daughter. I want her to see food for what it is and see the power of a meal to become something more than a meal that it is. Like I want her to see food with Catholic eyes. I didn't do that growing up. And I'm still trying to unlearn it. I'm still trying to shake it. I don't want her to have to unlearn it.
Wow, I got teary eyed on that one, because that having a daughter is really what brought a lot of healing to me in my disordered eating. Like I suffered a lot after the first two boys of I got to get my body back, and postpartum, and like it kind of that disorder came up again, and that vanity and that fear, the control. And then I birthed a daughter, and I was like, I do not want her to have that. Like, look at how beautiful she is, and look at how perfect she is, and look at how food is supposed to nourish her and build her to be the person she's supposed to be. It's a part of her growing. And then the same, like I don't want to be sitting eating lettuce while everyone else is eating hamburgers that I made. Like what a funny way to communicate that, like, this is good for all of you, but not for me, right? I need to do this.
Right. Like I would be upset if Ellie was wasting like one precious minute fretting about,
Yes.
like fretting about these things. I'm like, there's so many other things to think about, and you're so beautiful and you're so wonderful. I just want you to enjoy this. And again, like temperance is important. Moderation is important. Making good choices, like how we make good. But you teach that too. Like we make good choices for our body. We do justice to our body. We make those choices every day. The virtues come into play. And I talk a lot about that in my book, The Catholic Table, which came around the Catholic Table. But no, it's a whole way of eating and a spirit of eating, and it recognizes that people come in different sizes, and women's bodies change. They change with babies, they change with perimenopause, they change with puberty, like, and all women's bodies are different. Like, there's no way to diet your way into having the same body as every other woman. Just to approach it reasonably and joyfully. And oh my gosh, whenever I think about being anorexic again, I was like, so people will say, how I'll hear from young women and they'll say, oh, I'm just struggling so much. I'm like, how do you not do it anymore? I was like, I don't have time. I don't have that much time to think about food. I've got to take care of these children. I've got to help provide for my family. I've got to keep a house. I've got friends who need me. I don't have time to go back to that prison and sit there and count calories all day. And because when you're starving yourself, so much energy goes into starving yourself, like an enormous amount of energy. And I don't have that kind of energy right now. So
No.
that's how I do it.
And then we miss the fullness of those meals with our families, right? We miss the fullness of those meals with the people that we've invited in, or even just like our children and our spouse. Like, we miss that because so much energy is paying attention to what I'm putting in my mouth instead of the communion, the community that I'm with, and the fellowship, and the opportunities for good conversation, the opportunities to like care for them holistically, because I'm so inward focused.
So and panicking. Like, the fullness of work God wants to do cannot be done at the same time as, focusing obsessively on food in the body. It can't be done. Like, there's only so much energy and mental power and presence you have. And if you're giving it to your body and to food and focused on that, that's where your time, your energy is going, because it takes a lot of energy to starve yourself.
Yeah.
We're not meant to starve ourselves. We're meant to eat. We're meant to grow strong and healthy. And so when your energy is focused on a really hard, unnatural thing, you can't do what God needs you to do.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I appreciate hearing that that's not an isolated struggle. That's not an isolated thought process. So I appreciate that. Can you share with us your kids' favorite meal from the book, or maybe one of them, or all, whatever? They probably don't all like the same meal, because that's how kids are, but share some of the favorites from the book.
So my kids love soup. They love soup. So pretty much all of the soups that have meat in them, they are 100% down with. They love Toby loves the Indian dal. I have a recipe in there for, it's like a spicy curried lentils. He's always loved that. Ellie loves that. Even Beckett will eat that. They love pastas. They love mac and cheese. It's been great. My kids have all pretty much worked their way out of the picky stage now. So they're fun to cook for at this point. I'm being continually surprised. Beckett was our pickiest eater the longest, and he's finally really wanting to try things. So cooking is becoming a lot more fun for them than it was a couple of years ago. But I persisted. I was like, all right, kids, mommy is going to expose you to a world of flavors. I am not a short order cook. You will keep being exposed to this again and again. And it has paid off. So, but soup, if I'm making soup, they're always just thrilled.
That's a favorite. And is there a meal that is like a comfort food for Chris that you're like, okay, if things are rough, or I want to love on him in a special way, like, what would you make for your husband if you had that scenario?
I mean, his birthday request is always for the vodka sauce. He loves the vodka sauce over pasta. The bacon carbonara that I make is a family favorite. Like, if I just need a really fast, easy, popular meal for everybody, that always works. But vodka sauce, which takes some time, is probably Chris's favorite.
Very good. I am looking forward to, I saw the Stapletons posted this like whole journey on how they got all the pieces for the mac and cheese recipe. I think it's like,
oh, that might kill Renzo though. I don't know if his lactate pill is going to be
that one would probably be just for me. I'm waiting for the excuse to be able to make that, because that sounds delicious.
It is so good. The kale sweet potato and sausage soup we've been making a lot lately. Again, like, it had fallen out of the rotation and it's come back in. And I think that one is super tasty too. And you can throw spinach in if kale's too much for the kids, but even my kids will eat it. So
very good. So good to know. My father-in-law is a big make the kids try to eat spinach. So they all tolerate spinach. So I might try it first with spinach before the kale. Oh man. All right. So this book has been released and it's out out there. We'll link it in the show notes, and everybody should buy it for all the things, for the recipes, for the essays, to support just a good Catholic author. But you have a few other projects. Like if somebody didn't know who you were before this, and then they went to go check out who is Emily Stimpson Chapman, they would find a lot is happening right now. Do you want to share what else you have in the works these last few weeks?
Yeah, all my publishers decided to release books I've been working on for the past 4 years in the same 4 weeks. So it's a little wild right now. There's the cookbook. On Monday, The Story of All Stories, which is a Bible for young Catholics from Word on Fire, is coming out. It is a beautiful, 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 beautiful story Bible. And not all Catholics are familiar with story Bibles, which has been interesting. Like they're like, but it's not scripture. What is this? I was like, no, it's the story of salvation history. It introduces children to the salvation history as one narrative to help them understand like God's plan and how all of these people and events in the Bible are not disparate stories. They're part of one story. And what, we tried to make accessible and engaging. I was like, it's accessible and engaging. We tried for it, but it is stunningly beautiful. Every page is illustrated, like rich colors. And so that is coming out on Monday. And this past week, a book was supposed to come out, but it didn't arrive in the warehouse. So next week, another book is coming out, and it's called Sacred Wine. And it is about the history, the relationship of Catholicism and winemaking. So it's a coffee table book, and it looks at 12 wineries in Italy and France and Spain, and how their history and the development of different aspects of winemaking was all shaped by Catholics, by Catholic monks and Catholic teaching and Catholic history. So super fun. Next week, busy week.
Yeah, next week. And I think this will probably be released the week of all of those coming out. So that is
yes.
awesome.
I don't know. I may not know my name next week, but
I'll link everything in the show notes wherever you're watching or listening to this interview. So if you're on Substack or YouTube or Apple, I don't know, wherever, you'll find the links. I wanted to circle back though to the story Bible, because so my kids have the really short little story Bible that like I had when I was a kid. It's like a cartoon. I should have brought it upstairs with me so I could show it. But most people will probably know if they looked at it. It's like the millennial story Bible of like cheesy cartoons with big eyeballs, whatever. And so each of the stories is kind of like its own story, right? David and Goliath is the David and Goliath story. Jonah and the whale is the Jonah and the whale story. And then, you go into the New Testament and you have your stories. But what I loved about this one, The Story of All Stories, is at the end of each story, this must have taken so much time, but there's like a quote from a saint or a pope or something that kind of like relates or summarizes or like gives the final push. But then below that, there was the key point and the key connection. So you were making sure that the theme, like the lesson was learned and why that mattered in the context of the whole story. And our oldest, I've only let Colby look at this so far because his hands are the cleanest. My other little ones, their fingers are too dirty to look at this right now because I have to show everybody. But he opened it and he looked at David and Goliath and then was like, wait, the 5 stones that David had are related to the 5 wounds of Jesus on the cross. And his mind, like he sat back in the couch and was like dumbfounded. Like he thought that was so cool. So I loved that piece, like as the mom trying to teach things, but also not having all of that knowledge myself. Like that wasn't something I knew. I couldn't have shared that with him, but we both sat there and were like, wow, nothing.
Well,
we
want them to learn how to read the Bible from the heart of the church. Like the Bible is a Catholic book. It is the Catholic Church that declared which books went in the Bible. It is the Catholic Church that preserved it and copied it by hand for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's the church that's always taught it and interpreted it. But so many Catholics today don't think of the Bible necessarily as ours. And we wanted to help them understand this is how the church has always read the Bible. This is typology. So you can understand how the new and the old are connecting. So that's what those key points are always doing. They're like, this is how the old is foreshadowing the new. This is how the new is fulfilling the promises of the old. It doesn't talk down to kids. It is not like a baby Bible. No. There's beautiful language and beautiful art, and it's meant to really help them read the Bible from the heart of the church. And I think the more kids we have doing it and the more parents who are reading it alongside their kids, I think it's going to change people's experience of the faith.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. Where can we find, aside from like looking down links in the show notes, but where can we find you and where do you sell your books? Where can we read more of your essays? Because you continue writing. You haven't just written, you keep writing. Where can we find you?
Yeah, easiest place to go to emilystimpsonchapman.com and you can sign up for my newsletter where all my essays are. You can listen to our podcast, visitation sessions. You can buy my books. You can find old blog entries, all sorts of stuff there. emilystimpsonchapman.com.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, check those stuff out. This is perfect timing for Christmas. I know it's a lot for you, Emily, but to have stuff come out in like October, November, it's very easy. The godmothers are taken care of. I bought all of them a cookbook. The godchildren have a new Bible for Christmas.
And then everyone else has a wine book. I am here to serve all your Christmas shopping needs. I am
all the
one-stop shopping
grandparents
right
get their
now.
wine book. So there you go. We've got it all covered. So you can have an insane few weeks, but we're all very happy to click, cart, check out, and go.
Yeah, just say a prayer for me. Say a prayer for me that I remember I don't go back to the hospital with stress pains.
All right, you got it. And everybody, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at the next episode.